Imagine spending years trying to heal a wound while someone keeps reopening it every single day. Imagine convincing yourself that if you just love harder, forgive more, communicate better, become more patient, become less emotional, become more understanding, then the pain will finally stop. But what if the very place you're running to for comfort is the same place causing the damage? What if the relationship you're desperately trying to save is quietly destroying your ability to save yourself? Most people never ask that question. They stay, they hope, they wait. They believe one more conversation will change everything, one more chance, one more apology, one more promise. But sometimes the most dangerous trap isn't a toxic person. It's the belief that the source of your suffering will eventually become the source of your healing. There is a Stoic lesson that many people misunderstand. The Stoics did not teach endless tolerance. They did not teach sacrificing your peace to preserve a relationship. They taught reality. They taught seeing things exactly as they are, not as we wish them to be. One of the hardest realities to accept is that some relationships create damage that cannot heal while you remain inside the environment that caused it. Think about a person who develops anxiety because every conversation turns into criticism. Every opinion is questioned. Every mistake is highlighted. Every success is minimized. Over time, they begin doubting themselves. Their confidence slowly disappears. Now imagine that same person trying to rebuild their self-worth while still hearing the same criticism every week. How can a plant grow when the soil itself is poisoned? Healing requires space. Growth requires distance from the forces that constantly pull you backward. Many people stay because they confuse love with attachment. Love is healthy when it allows people to grow. Attachment is different. Attachment makes people believe they cannot survive without someone, even when that person is hurting them. A woman may stay with a man who constantly lies because she remembers the good moments from years ago. A man may stay with a woman who manipulates him because he fears being alone. They tell themselves they are fighting for love, but often they are fighting against reality. Stoicism teaches that suffering increases whenever we become attached to an illusion instead of accepting the truth. The truth may be painful, but it is still safer than a comforting lie. One of the biggest reasons people fail to heal inside damaging relationships is because their nervous system never gets a chance to rest. Imagine someone who gets into an argument every few days. Maybe the issue changes each time. One day it's money, another day it's jealousy, another day it's trust. But the emotional cycle remains the same. Tension builds, conflict explodes, apologies follow, things improve briefly. Then the cycle starts again. Eventually, the body begins living in a constant state of alertness. The person becomes anxious, even during peaceful moments, because they are waiting for the next problem. This is why some people feel exhausted all the time without understanding why. Their body has learned that safety is temporary. Healing cannot happen when your mind is constantly preparing for the next emotional storm. The Stoics believed that peace comes from controlling what is within your power and releasing what is not. Yet many relationships become prisons because people spend years trying to control things they never had control over. They try to control another person's honesty, another person's loyalty, another person's effort, another person's maturity. They believe that if they say the right words or show enough love, the other person will change. But character cannot be forced. Growth cannot be forced. Accountability cannot be forced. The moment you accept responsibility for fixing another person, you begin neglecting responsibility for yourself. Consider someone dating a partner who repeatedly breaks promises. Maybe they promise to stop flirting with other people. Maybe they promise to help more around the house. Maybe they promise to stop disappearing whenever problems arise. Each time they fail, another apology appears, another explanation, another excuse. The injured partner keeps believing that this time will be different. Years pass. Nothing changes. What they don't realize is that every broken promise teaches them something dangerous. It teaches them to lower their standards. It teaches them to tolerate behavior they once knew was unacceptable. It teaches them that disappointment is normal. That is not healing. That is adaptation to dysfunction. One of the most painful truths in life is that familiarity often feels safer than freedom. People remain in unhealthy relationships because they know what to expect. They know the arguments. They know the disappointments. They know the emotional wounds. The unknown future feels more frightening than the familiar pain. Stoicism challenges this way of thinking. The Stoics understood that fear often exaggerates danger. The fear of leaving may be stronger than the actual consequences of leaving. Many people spend years fearing loneliness, only to discover that the loneliness they feared was less painful than the constant emotional neglect they were already experiencing. Another reason healing becomes impossible is because unhealthy relationships distort identity. Over time, people stop recognizing themselves. They become quieter, more anxious, more insecure, more reactive. They stop pursuing hobbies they once loved. They stop seeing friends. They stop chasing goals. Their world becomes smaller and smaller until their entire emotional state depends on the relationship. This is dangerous because the relationship is no longer part of life. It becomes life itself. Stoicism teaches that your sense of self should never be placed entirely in another person's hands. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's behavior, your peace becomes fragile. Think about the person who constantly checks their phone, waiting for a text, or the person who spends hours wondering why their partner seems distant, or the person who cannot enjoy a vacation, a dinner, or even a quiet evening because they are worried about the next argument. Their attention is no longer focused on living. It is focused on surviving emotionally. The relationship has become a source of constant uncertainty. Healing requires stability. Healing requires emotional oxygen. Healing requires an environment where your mind is not forced to defend itself every day. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that people reveal their character through their actions, not through their words. This lesson is especially important in relationships. Many people fall in love with potential. They fall in love with promises. They fall in love with future possibilities. But life happens in the present. If someone consistently shows dishonesty, disrespect, selfishness, or emotional irresponsibility, those actions deserve more attention than their promises. Healing begins when you stop listening to who someone says they will become and start paying attention to who they repeatedly choose to be. Sometimes people believe that staying proves strength. They believe enduring endless pain demonstrates loyalty. But Stoicism teaches a different kind of strength. True strength is the courage to face reality without denial. True strength is accepting that some relationships have expiration dates. True strength is understanding that leaving can sometimes require more courage than staying. Anyone can remain trapped in familiarity. Not everyone can walk away from something they desperately wanted to work. There is also a hidden cost to remaining in relationships that continually wound us. Every year spent trying to convince the wrong person to value you is a year not spent building the life you deserve. Every month spent begging for respect is a month not spent developing self-respect. Every day spent questioning your worth because of someone else's behavior is a day stolen from your growth. Life is limited. The Stoics constantly reflected on this fact. They understood that time is our most valuable resource. Once spent, it never returns. Many people hear the phrase, "You cannot heal in the same relationship that broke you," and assume it means every damaged relationship must end. That is not always true. Some relationships can heal if both people are willing to take responsibility, create lasting change, and rebuild trust through consistent action. But that requires something many relationships lack: mutual effort. Healing cannot happen when only one person is carrying the entire burden. Healing cannot happen when one person is working while the other remains comfortable. Healing cannot happen when accountability exists on only one side. The hardest part is often accepting that love alone is not enough. Love without respect becomes suffering. Love without trust becomes anxiety. Love without effort becomes frustration. Love without accountability becomes chaos. The world teaches people that love conquers everything. Stoicism teaches something more realistic. Love is important, but character is what sustains relationships. Without character, even the strongest feelings eventually collapse under the weight of repeated disappointment. If there's one thing I want you to remember from this video, it's this. Healing is not about proving your loyalty to people who continue to hurt you. Healing is about returning to yourself. It is about rebuilding the parts of you that were slowly lost while you were busy trying to save something that refused to change. Too many people spend years asking, how do I make this relationship work? When the better question is, what is this relationship doing to me? Because a relationship should not constantly leave you feeling anxious, exhausted, insecure, or emotionally drained. It should not require you to abandon your self-respect just to keep the peace. The Stoics understood that peace comes from accepting reality, not fighting it. Sometimes, reality tells us that a person is not who we hoped they would be. Sometimes, reality tells us that the apologies will continue, but the behavior will not change. Sometimes reality tells us that the version of the relationship we keep chasing exists only in our imagination. And while that truth may hurt, it is still the beginning of freedom. Because the moment you stop chasing what could be, you finally gain the strength to deal with what is. Remember this. Walking away from what breaks you is not weakness. Setting boundaries is not selfish. Choosing your peace is not giving up. In many cases, it is the bravest thing you will ever do. The strongest people are not always the ones who stay and endure endless pain. Sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who finally say, I deserve better than this, and have the courage to mean it. Your healing begins the moment you stop asking someone else to become your cure and start becoming your own. It begins when you stop waiting for another person to validate your worth and realize your worth was never theirs to give. And it begins when you understand that protecting your peace is not a betrayal of love. It is an act of self-respect. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment below and tell us, what is one relationship lesson that took you years to learn? Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're ready to build emotional strength, self-respect, and a stoic mindset that cannot be shaken by the actions of others, make sure to subscribe to PSYCHOVEST and turn on notifications. We release new videos designed to help you think clearer, live stronger, and reclaim control of your life. Before you go, take a moment and be honest with yourself. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have because you hoped things would change? If so, you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments below. Your story could help someone else recognize the signs they're currently ignoring. And if you're committed to building stronger boundaries, greater self-respect, and a mindset that refuses to settle for emotional suffering, make sure to subscribe to PSYCHOVEST and turn on notifications. Every week, we dive deep into Stoic wisdom, relationships, emotional resilience, and personal growth so you can become the strongest version of yourself without losing who you are in the process. Until next time, remember, not every relationship is meant to be saved, but you are. Protect your peace, protect your future, and above all, never lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who keeps giving you reasons to let go.